Hi, I'm Sana Khan and you're watching WION's special broadcast at 7. This evening on the show, even as the Bharatiya Janata Party won a landslide in the Uttar Pradesh Assembly elections, the opposition parties in the state came up with a stunning allegation that the electronic voting machines or the EVMs used in the elections were compromised. An allegation that has snowballed into a major debate involving the Election Commission. In fact, let's play out that soundbite from BSP's Mayawati.
उत्तर प्रदेश में अभी विधानसभा के आम चुनाव होकर हटे हैं। उत्तर प्रदेश में ईवीएम में बड़े पैमाने पर गड़बड़ी की गई है और इस मामले को लेकर हमारी पार्टी अदालत में भी जा रही है।
Now, while the Election Commission has ruled out any chance of the EVMs being tampered with or being compromised, the issue has understandably caused a lot of debate in the media and the public. On this special broadcast this evening, we're looking at this particular issue, but most important of all, try to find out if your vote, my vote, everybody's vote is safe and the process is fair. In fact, joining me this evening is Dr. S.Y. Qureshi. He's a former Chief Election Commissioner. Thank you, sir, so much for joining me here. Now, you've written a lot recently about this entire controversy, and I'm going to quote one of the lines that you mentioned. EVM controversy seems to raise its head like a weather cycle. Perhaps that is exactly what we've seen over the years. The losing party always seems to question the efficacy of the EVMs.
Yes, that's what I said in my various articles, that this has been happening since the beginning, 1982, when EVM was first introduced. Some people questioned, they went to court, it went up to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court said that you can't use these machines, not because of technology reasons or insecurity, for technical legal reason. They said that the Representation of People Act mentions ballot papers. It doesn't talk of any machine. So if you include that in the Representation of People Act, then it will be fine. So obviously the act was amended, and since 1998, the Election Commission has been using EVM in all elections very successfully. But every now and then, in fact, every single party of India has questioned the machine at some point or the other. And when they win by the same machine, they just keep quiet.
Right. Dr. Qureshi, do stay with me. In fact, for the viewers who've just tuned in, it's important to know how an EVM machine really functions. What is that exact process? And joining me for shedding some more light on that is my colleague Sahil Maniktala. Sahil, if you can just let our viewers know the simple procedure of how an EVM really functions.
Right, Sana, but before I answer that question, first I just want to say to the Election Commission, well done for taking this initiative, because what they've done is they've basically said, look, you think our EVMs can be hacked, then come over and prove it. So great initiative there. Now, to answer your question, Sana, how does it actually work? An EVM basically consists of two units. One is called a control unit, and the other one is called a balloting unit. Now, the control unit is completely separate from the balloting unit. The control unit usually is under the control of a polling officer, and the balloting unit usually is kept in a separate room where the voter will go and then cast his or her vote for their respected candidates. Right? Now, that's the simple part. That's what happens. Now, the really, really interesting part is that the polling officer is the only one who can allow the voter to cast his vote, because he can activate it from his control unit. Okay, so like I said, Bolitka is done in a completely different balloting unit by voters, and the only person who has control of that is the polling officer. Now, that means on the day of counting, on counting day, that means if the polling officer suspects there's something fishy or something isn't quite right, then he can step in and say, you know what, I'm not going to let you vote. So there is that power. So if you ask me, can it be tampered on, on that specific day, on counting day? No, right. I don't think it can be tampered.
And, what about the fact, Sahil, that the allegation that can EVMs be hacked? People say if a bank account can be hacked, then why not, a simple machine like an EVM be hacked?
Well, a bank account is on an online platform, right? EVMs aren't. There's no online connection. It doesn't work on internet. So, I mean, if you're talking about conventional online hacking, you need internet. Without internet, you cannot absolutely hack it. So it just can't happen. And you have to be connected. They're not connected to any wireless network. It's not connected to any Bluetooth of any sort. So it just can't be hacked. Because if you want to hack something, you need to get on the internet to do it.
And lastly, if EVMs can't be hacked or tampered with, as you mentioned, because there is no internet connection, what's the possibility that an election outcome can be impacted in any way as far as,
Okay, so that's an interesting question. Now, according to various videos that surfaced on the internet over the years, they've showed unverified videos, might I add, that that's basically fueled all these tampering rumors. Now, a very famous one was back in 2010 when scientists from the Michigan University basically they took a chip, and that chip had a Bluetooth setting in it, and they placed it inside a machine. They took an EVM machine and they placed it inside it, and then what they did was they used their mobile phones and they actually changed the vote. Now, if that is true, we're not confirming if it is true, but if that is true, then yes, tampering can take place. But then, that being said, you will actually require access to that machine. You will require access to that EVM. You need the hardware. Without the machine, you just can't do it. And let's just also make one thing very clear. You won't need one machine. You won't need two machines. You won't need 10 machines to, completely change the outcome of election. We are talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of machines. You need all of that, and you can't change it without that.
All right, Sahil, thanks for sharing those important bits of information with our viewers. Dr. Eswai Qureshi, coming back to you now, how much would you say is this kind of education, bringing out these kind of pointers forward for the people, for the voters who are concerned, looking at these unverified videos? How much of that do you think is the need of the hour, as much as reassurances from the Election Commission?
I don't think you need to come back to me when we have such a good advocate of the machine right in your studio. He made a brilliant case, better than I can. This machine has, number one, it is not linked to wireless, which is why we don't have internet voting. Secondly, there is so much of custodial security. And then when the machines are made in the two factories, which also are not private sector factories, they are under Defense Ministry and Atomic Energy Ministry. After that, we decide to the state ourselves, which state they should go to as per the need. But once the machines land up in the states, which district they go to, and in the district which constituency they go to, that is decided by the computer, by randomization. Now, there is no way that there can be any manipulation of the machine in the factory itself, that you program it such a way that a particular button will keep sending votes to some other destination. Because the names of all these buttons are put in an alphabetical order by the name of the candidate, and the candidate, not by the party. There is no fixed button for a BJP or Congress or BSP, for instance. So in every constituency, they change it. And the machines landing up in constituencies, they are done entirely by the computer. Plus, there are 3 levels of checking in the machine when we are getting it ready through the engineers. In every process, political party representatives are invited. They are present and they sign the entire process. And the last mock, and 3 times we do a mock poll on those machines. The last mock poll is on the day of the poll, an hour before the poll begins. So if a machine is functioning fine at 7 in the morning, what could go wrong during the day? Theoretically, something it may malfunction for some reason, which is replaced within half an hour. But there's no question of manipulation whatsoever.
Absolutely. And that can happen, case-wise, not across the board and not in all the constituencies in one go. Dr. Eswai Qureshi, do stay with me. Ms. Kalyani Shankar, political commentator, also joining us over the phone line. Ms. Kalyani Shankar, thanks so much for joining us. What do you have to say about these allegations that, parties like the Aam Aadmi Party, Mayawati's party are making after their election defeat? Do you think it's just another case of sour grapes?
Well, it's very strange. You see, as far as Aam Aadmi Party is concerned, that party won 67 out of 70 seats. Did they win because of the manipulation of the electronic voting machine? That's number one. But that time, Kejriwal did not talk about it. As far as Mayawati is concerned, in 2007, she came with an unprecedented majority. Then she did not say. So what happened between then and now for these leaders to say that the electronic voting machines are manipulated? Do they mean that after Prime Minister Modi has taken over, things are getting manipulated and they are doing all these? That is number one question. The number two question is, Mr. Qureshi has been talking about how from 1982, there are doubts expressed by various parties, various people at one time or the other about the efficacy of the electronic voting machine. It has even gone to the court. But despite all that, why does this question pop up again and again? You know, this creates a kind of suspicion and also a perception among the gullible voters that maybe there is something about, true about this. So that perception has to be removed by the Election Commission. And whatever way they try to do, they should do it. And they should make it once for all to the voters that there is no hanky-panky and they can come and vote in the electronic voting machine and they are safe. But that has not been happening despite 2 or 3 decades of the electronic voting machine. So this, I have no answer for this. I think Mr. Qureshi may have to give the answer for this particular thing.
Right. Mr. Qureshi, would you like to respond to what Ms. Kalyani Shankar has said?
Exactly what the clarification she wanted. I missed that point.
Right, right. Also, Mr. Qureshi, like I mentioned earlier as well, I want you to please highlight for us, and you've written extensively as well about this point as well, what the Election Commission can do or should do in order to allay, voters' fears at this point in time, or any apprehensions they might have reading or watching, debates and news about EVM tampering.
Well, Election Commission actually did issue a press note. About 9 or 11 page detailed process, security checks they were mentioned about 10 days ago. I don't know why it was not highlighted enough, but doesn't matter. People have a right to question, and Election Commission's duty is to keep explaining. And I'll be happy if when they come out with with a press conference, the full commission sits there and explains the process to the nation, because political parties come around, depending on the results. But the skepticism about the machine should not penetrate the mind of the nation, the people. Therefore, the sooner the better. I think probably the Election Commission had been busy in the election and the by-elections. Now that they will be free by tomorrow, they should immediately organize a display, public display.
Right. Now, Ms. Kalyani Shankar, we've been talking about this before you joined in on the broadcast. We took our viewers through a series of points proving, in fact, pointing out some of these points that all EVMs cannot be tampered with at one point in time. It's just not possible. Now, but if EVMs, as alleged, are favoring one party, then what explains the fact that some of the other parties are winning in some of the other states? For example, let's say in the state of Punjab. So clearly allegations cannot be selective, Ms. Shankar. Ms. Kalyani Shankar, are you with me? Yeah.
Yeah. You see, that is exactly what I was raising earlier. Now, Captain Amrendra Singh has said that electronic voting machines are fine. Congress leader Veerappa Moily has said they are fine. So within the Congress party itself, there is a division. So there are lots of questions which are raised, which the Election Commission has to answer. You see, unless you clarify all these things, and once for all, this debate has to end. That is how the Election Commission has to go around. Only 2 days ago, I was talking to a Congress leader from Maharashtra. He said in one constituency where the candidate, in the municipal corporation election, I think, where the candidate himself had voted and 11 members of his family had voted, but the voting machine said 0 for him. So he was raising, how can it happen? So this kind of questions arise, and they have to be clarified by the electronic voting machine, and this responsibility lies with the Election Commission.
Mr. Rajat Munna, technical expert from the Election Commission, is also joining us on the broadcast live. Thanks so much, Mr. Munna, for joining us. What do you think, sir, the Election Commission should do to allay voters' fears about EVMs being tampered with, or the possibility of tampering with them?
I think Election Commission already did this. They gave out an open challenge in 2009 to anybody who has a knowledge of tampering and who has witnessed a tampering can come forward and show the tampering. Nobody could come forward. And I think Election Commission is again thinking of doing the same thing. And it's again giving out that challenge. in the month of May for people to come forward and show the challenge. I think the biggest advantage will be to actually be able to show. I mean, it is saying is one thing and showing it another thing. As far as I see, I have not seen anybody coming forward saying this is the way we can tamper. So these are all apprehensions that people are talking of. And to say that in some place somebody voted and somebody did not vote, I think saying is another thing, but actually showing is another thing. And I don't think we have been able to see anybody coming forward and say, you know, we can show it.
Absolutely. No one has ever been able to prove the fact that an EVM has ever been tampered with. That's another thing. But that does create doubts in the minds of the people. Dr. S.Y. Qureshi, now, these allegations, let's say they're not true. No one has been able to prove them. But they're certainly a black mark on our democratic process. Whenever a voter thinks that maybe, my vote has gone to waste, that does create a sense of doubt in the minds of the voter, isn't it? What do you have to say to that?
No, things were going on very fine all these years. After the Supreme Court decided that we will introduce VVPAT in phases in 2013. For 3 years, nobody raised any issue. It's only now that the issues have been raised, and as Professor Muna also said, the Election Commission very soon will come out with an open demonstration. And at the same time, when Kalyanji was saying that, let us cleanse it once for all, we thought on various occasions, we thought we had cleansed it once for all. In 2009, when we threw an open challenge and nobody could do it, that was a clinching point. Later on, Supreme Court judgment was a clinching point. So the controversy, we can't stop controversy, but to use black mark on our democracy, I don't think that's a question mark, you may say, that people keep on questioning. But there are doubting Thomases always. And I feel that once VVPAT is introduced fully, things will change. They should change. But now, unfortunately, they have started questioning the VVPAT also. So then where do we stop it? Where do we end?
Right. Perhaps Mr. Rajat Muna can also throw some light on the VVPAT system and how, there have been reports that even that system is not fully tamper-proof. We are looking at implementing that perhaps in 2019 elections.
So VVPAT is basically a system where as a voter presses a finger on one of the candidates' choice, the corresponding vote is printed out and it is visible to the voter in a sealed compartment, and after the printing is done, the vote is cut and stored in a box underneath, which is basically a sealed box. Now, at any point in time, these can be compared. What has happened is, there are unnecessary doubts which are being raised for saying, can we actually compare this? Can we not compare? VVPAT is giving a wrong result or something. But frankly speaking, I have not seen anybody coming up and showing any complaint. In fact, no complaint has ever come out. It's like, again, saying in the media is another thing, but actually showing it or proving it that that has happened is yet another thing. Dholpur is a good example where people talked about tampering, people talked about VVPAT giving wrong things.
Right.
But then the people who are shown kind of claiming it to be, they were not even from that constituency. They have actually been, identified, and it has been noticed that they are not from that constituency. They have never said that. So this kind of a thing is primarily to raise a doubt in the mind of people for their own benefits. I don't think there is any technical difficulty in this.
Okay, baseless allegations is what you say. Also, Dr. S.Y. Qureshi has been making the same point. So are EVMs the way ahead as far as elections are concerned? And how do some of the other countries in the world look at EVMs? For that, let me go across to my colleague Pratyush Dubey. Pratyush.
Well, thank you, Sana. But we're going to drop some graphics here, and we're going to talk about some of these countries. We're going to pick up the democratic countries. Let's just begin with Germany. In Germany, the status of EVMs today is banned. The reason is that they're prone to hacking, and this was decided by the German High Court. The highest court of that land decided, based on the evidence it got, that, well, you know, they're prone to hacking, that they could be tampered with. Well, let's move on. That is Germany that we spoke about. There are other countries, there's Netherlands, of course. Now, they banned it because they decided that the entire system of collecting votes electronically through an EVM, well, it lacked transparency. This was after a petition was moved and the parliament came to the conclusion, and they were the EVMs were simply outvoted in the parliament. Another country that we need to look at, and some of these would be interesting. First of this is definitely Ireland. Now, Sana, in Ireland, they spent £51 million. They spent 3 years in researching this before they came to this conclusion that they are not tamper-proof. Now, no one is saying that that perhaps this is an example India should look at, that there are some concerns that we need to address. Now, while that may be, we don't really know what were these systems, how old they were, you know, whether these systems were connected with the internet or not. And so definitely there are a lot of factors that needs to be looked at when we wonder why these EVMs were banned. But another country, Italy, well, in their reason for banning EVMs was definitely unique. They said it's expensive. They discovered that a paper ballot system was perhaps cheaper for them. That's why they went ahead with paper ballots. And finally, let's look at United States of America. Now, they have a mixed experience with EVMs. Some states, such as California, do use EVMs, but they do use EVMs with paper trail. This is after people expressed some concerns that they didn't fully trust electronic machines. But by and large, in the United States, electronic voting machines aren't preferred. Sana.
All right. Thanks, Pratyush, so much. Now, Dr. Qureshi, I'm going to come to you and then Ms. Kalyani Shankar, and also go to Mr. Munna later. But how do you look at the way other countries hold their elections? Is perhaps, should India look at them and get into a bit of research, or look at going back to the ballot paper? Is there something to pick up from here?
No, we have looked at all the countries in detail in the past, and to say that America doesn't use EVM is wrong, because America doesn't have one single system. Their elections are totally decentralized. There are 50 states and 3,024 counties, and therefore there are 3,000 systems of election, and hundreds of counties are using machines of different kinds. Now, to say one EVM, now EVM is not just one single machine across the globe.
Right.
Just as a car is not, and a telephone is not. Now, Volkswagen was in trouble some time ago. That doesn't mean you ban Mercedes also. Therefore, right, our EVMs are different. We guarantee Indian EVMs. Now, Netherlands machine had failed because it was networked. And since 4 other countries were buying those machines, so when the Netherlands had to stop it, the other 4 countries also had to stop using those machines. Now, the German Supreme Court did not say that the machines are not transparent. They went only by a technical question of law, that the Constitution requires a very transparent system of voting, and where you can physically go see the vote going. And since the machines do not show that physically, therefore it was a constitutional requirement. Our own Supreme Court had said the same thing in 1984, that your law does not mention EVM. It only mentions ballot paper. Right. So first fill up that lacuna and then come back. So we got the act amended, and since 98 we have been using the machine. So, and secondly, in fact, the world is coming and looking at our machine. We have the cheapest and the steadiest machine. They work in all climate. They have stood the test for 20 years. Others, Ireland is only 3 years old. We have been doing it for 20 years, and every single party has questioned, and every single party has won also with the same machines. Right. So this controversy is unfortunate, and it has to be answered. Any delay by the Election Commission in explaining is, I think, counterproductive, and I'm sure now that they will be free from by-elections, they'll come out with it very soon.
Let's hope so. Mr. Rajat Munna, do you agree with what Mr. S.Y. Qureshi is saying with your technical expertise? There were faults if you look at, the international manufacturers, but the Indian EVMs, the ones used in our elections, there is no proof that any machine has ever been tampered with. There might have been allegations, but still no proof.
See, I think I would actually look at the answer in 2 separate parts. One part is that to say that EVMs are made in some other countries and they are not useful there, and or other countries are not using it, I think it exhibits our colonial mentality. The hidden part in this is that other countries are able to do a better job in electronics than what we have been able to do. I think people forget that our scientific abilities have actually grown multiple times over years, and today we are very, very proud of our scientific achievements. I mean, whether it's a Mangalyaan or whether it is launching of satellites and all that, we have actually shown to the world that we have actually our own unique positions. And in the electronic sector, it is typically manufacturing which is done not in one place, but in collaborative manner in all over the world. Something comes from somewhere and something else comes from somewhere and all that. So therefore, together when it is actually made, it is a product that comes out. And it is the final product that we should be talking of, rather than saying that whether it is manufactured somewhere else, or whether it is not in use somewhere else and all that, because these questions in my mind are all irrelevant. These doubts in my mind are all irrelevant.
All right.
So we should actually come out of our colonial mentality and accept that we are better
it is, as Dr. S.Y. Qureshi, Mr. Rajat Munna said, it's an unfortunate sort of a controversy that seems to crop up every time we have an election result. Ms. Kalyani Shankar, taking your thoughts, sorry to have kept you waiting for so long. Do you think things are going to change even after the Election Commission comes out and talks about the EVM? Allay's public sphere says that it's absolutely tamper-proof. We've seen this happen for many, many years now. It was the BJP earlier, then the Congress, now it's the Aam Aadmi Party and the BSP. Allegations of EVMs being tampered with.
Well, you see, as far as you have seen all these 3 decades, it's one party or the other. They have been complaining. So what the Election Commission could do is to first of all explain to the leaders of this political party or the representatives that how this cannot be tampered and how good they are. As Mr. Qureshi has been saying, this point should be stressed and explained to them. Once they are convinced, I don't think they will come up with this kind of allegation. No ordinary citizen has gone to the court saying that these should be replaced. It's the political parties which are doing it. So you should go into the reasons of why they are doing it and how you can explain to them, how you can convince them. Once you convince them, I think half the battle is won. So that is for the Election Commission again, as Mr. Qureshi has said, it has to explain to the parties as well as the people. Once you explain to the parties that...
Absolutely. And with that, all the concerns will also be, taken care of. The concern that people might think that is their vote safe? Is their vote, does their vote really mean something when they go out and vote? On that note, we'll have to end this discussion. Thanks so much, Dr. S.Y. Qureshi, Ms. Kalyani Shankar and Mr. Rajat Munna for joining us here on the broadcast. That's it then on this edition. We're going to be taking a short break. More news and updates follow right here on WION.